Welcome to another edition of Wine 101 on Split Bucket, where we try and give you a few hints and tips. We're in the Ultimo Wine Centre in Sydney, joined again by John. And this session, we're going to look at some wine labels and try and help you decipher what has to be one of the more complicated aspects of wine. So if you just want to start by telling us the difference generally between, I guess, New World, Australian, New Zealand labels and European labels.
Okay, well, in Australia, essentially our labelling is done by varietal. So you'll always see in the bottle generally it's a Cabernet Sauvignon, it's a Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Whereas in the old world, European, and particularly France, they have a system called the Appellation control system, and this means that it's the whole area is regulated. Particular regions, you're only allowed to grow certain varieties. The wines are picked certain days, there's certain alcohols, and so it's a little bit confusing initially, but once you get through the sort of basic level of information, it becomes very, very easy. So, for example, I've got a bottle of Bordeaux here, so one of the great areas in France.
Yep.
Now, Bordeaux ranges from just generic Bordeaux, Bordeaux Superior, through to up to the classified growth. I mean by that, in 1855, they classified the 57 top growth on historical, on price and value and prestige.
Yeah, and they've not really changed.
No, it's a great boys club to be in, so they don't like to change much. There's only been the one change in '73 when Mouton Rothschild was elevated from a second to a first growth.
Right.
That's been the only change.
Okay.
It's unlikely to change again. A few people are trying, but I don't think they will. So now we're in Bordeaux. We have an individual appellation called Saint-Estèphe.
Yeah.
So that's in the northern part of the Haute-Medoc.
So that's really the vineyard area, isn't it?
That's the vineyard area.
So what else have we got on a Bordeaux label?
So it'll say Chateau name, appellation, then you'll say Grand Cru Classé in 1855.
Yeah.
And Misson Boutal au Chateau, so it means bottled at the chateau.
Okay.
So that's quite important. When you get to Burgundy too, you'll have it'll say that it won't say chateau necessarily in Burgundy, it'll say by domain. So that's quite important to establish that.
All right. And it's a fourth growth.
Fourth growth,
Does
yes.
it say that on the label?
No, it doesn't. Occasionally they might, but on the back label they might talk about it, but this one doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it implies a level of knowledge, and I suppose they think that, we have this place in the world of wine, you should know who we are.
You should, absolutely. So no grapes on there. The most important part to really understand is where it's from and the
producer and
the area of the vineyard.
And the vintage is very important.
And the vintage, of course.
So, the key thing is always going to be who's produced the wine, apart from, if you want a wine from a particular area, who the producer is and the vintage, because, the vintage variation is very important, and that'll determine the price.
Okay, cool.
So we'll...
let's move on. What have we got next?
Well, we can go to Italy.
Yep.
In France, it's just a matter of getting to understand those basic appellation laws, because it's very quite simple. We didn't really say what the varieties in that wine is. Predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon blended with Merlot. There'll be some Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, and maybe some Malbec. So those 5 varieties are allowed. And then you go to Burgundy, and it's principally Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. So, but we're in Italy now. So again, they have very strong laws, whether that's how strict they are, but...
what are you suggesting?
No. No, that's... the system in Italy is very good. Again, but there's hundreds into the thousands of indigenous varieties, so again, it's a minefield trying to understand some of the lesser known varieties. So, but this is a simple one. It's a Chianti Classico from Tuscany. You'll see, and there's several different areas in Chianti, so between Florence roughly and down to Siena. And so this is Chianti Classico is considered to be the great area. On the back label you'll see that strip, and it'll have a black cockerel.
And if it doesn't have the black cockerel?
It's not Chianti Classico, but it could be one of the other Chianti regions, sub-regions, So we have the producer, is Fonterratoli, is their brand name.
Again, no grape variety?
No grape variety again, because by law there's only certain varieties that they can use. In principal variety there is Sangiovese.
Okay. Yep.
They're allowed a bit of Cabernet, and they can use some of there's a couple of other varieties that are allowed as well. So again, it'll say Chianti Classico, the region, producer, and the vintage.
Okay, those are the 3 key things to look for. Now, finally, we've got to be one of the favourites, and that is German wine labelling, which is probably used in textbooks of some of the most complicated labels you'll ever find. This one doesn't look too bad, but tell us what's going on there.
Okay, so well, the two main regions that we're German wines are synonymous are the Rhine, the Rheingau, and the Moselle-Saar-Ruhr. So in the blind test, you'll always, the dark brown bottle is from Rheingau, and the green bottle is from the Moselle-Saar-Ruhr.
I didn't know that. I'll remember that.
Here we've got a bottle from the Moselle. In the example here, the Marcus Molitor. The wine is from the town of Zeltlinger. The vineyard is called Sonnenur, and the style is a cabernet, which is a sugar rating. So you have basically QBA wines, and they go QMP wines, which is a measure of sugar. So you go from cabernet to Spatlé to Auslay to Baron Auslay to Trockenbaron Auslay.
I think we need a whole episode on German wine labels.
Yeah.
But so the important thing here is you've got the village, the vineyard,
and the style, which will give you an indication of sweetness. And now you'll see a lot of Trocken wines saying dry. You'll see a Cabernet Trocken, which is a wine that's been picked to a Cabernet sweetness level but fermented dry.
Yep.
And same, so you can have a Cabernet, you can have a Spatlé Trocken.
Yep.
So it gets very, very confusing. So there's a big move for more dry styles in Germany, but it's sort of becomes very confusing when they're calling the Cabernet Trockens.
Okay. And any number of producers could produce a wine from this vineyard,
yes,
couldn't they?
So that's right. So again,
you have to look for the producer.
Yeah, the producer is all in quality. So if you know the famous producer, and they'll have probably wines in several villages in that area.
Okay, and interestingly, this label has got Riesling on it.
On it, yeah. Generally,
so
yeah.
Is that a more recent thing?
Yeah, I think that's generally, historically no, but in the last 15, 20 years, some producers have put Riesling on there.
Okay, well, fantastic.
And generally, as a general rule, they're all Riesling. Otherwise, they're usually labelled. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, we've had a little look into France and to Spain and to Germany. And actually, once you've got the basic rules about what those different countries do with their labels and how they split their vineyard areas, you should be able to read them no problem. That was an easy German one. I tell you, there are some brutes out there. But join us again soon for another edition of Wine 101 on Spit Bucket, where we will be tackling more exciting educational topics. Yes, exciting. Cheers.